In this week's news roundup, we start with the obvious. Hogwarts Legacy, coming out to absolutely massive sales figures. It actually got the top 4 spots of the Steam top sellers. Now this is because Steam separates out all the different SKUs, and so you have both 2 for the pre-orders and 2 for after it's actually launched. And these sales are done by total revenue taken in by Steam, and they're still beating the Steam Deck and everything else, even when you separate them out individually. And that is definitely a good sign for Hogwarts Legacy if the after-launch sales are still increasing, because it means people like what they see, they like the reviews, they like what they're hearing, and still going out and deciding to purchase it for themselves. These are people that waited to find out what it was like, and then thought, okay, it meets my quality level. And a lot of people were checking out the game, deciding whether to buy or not. With Twitch hitting 1.28 million peak concurrent viewers, now it is a little bit off because Hogwarts had drops, but I think to get all of the drops, you only need about 2 hours of view time, and so those drops viewers will filter out very quickly. I think most people will have got them in the first day easily. And that's especially true by this point, where Hogwarts Legacy is still coming in at 288,000 viewers, coming in only behind Just Chatting, so it is still the top game on Twitch. And if you look at the next few games, they're just really old games that are incredibly popular and basically always at the top of Twitch anyway. If you want to go to the next newest game, you have to go all the way down to 7th with Dark and Darker. And if you go to the trends over time, it did obviously peak at 1.2 million. Second day though, most people probably still would have got their drops by this point. Still getting to 683,000, dropped again to 455 the next day, maintained at about 500, and now we've kind of settled into about 300,000 viewers. But that is just Twitch, that's just people watching others play the game. If you actually go over to the Steam stats, then you get an entirely different and way more positive story than the drop-off on Twitch, because the player numbers over on Steam are insane with 878,000 players concurrently. And you can see that the player numbers kept increasing over time. And yeah, okay, the first few days of the early access, obviously that's going to be lower. But even after the 10th, every single day it's been increasing as the Twitch viewers decreased. So people have been going off the reviews, word of mouth, watching people on Twitch, and then deciding, okay, I've watched enough now, I'm just going to play it for myself. So I'm sure the developers are incredibly happy with the numbers that they're getting, especially when you consider that the peak now is 880,000, and Elden Ring's peak was 953,000, so they're only 80k off their total, and I don't think anyone expected Hogwarts Legacy to come close to Elden Ring. And if the daily increase in viewer trend continues, it might actually reach it, although this is the end of the weekend, so I have my doubts. Now, one of the interesting things about Hogwarts Legacy is the difference in reviews and the dichotomy between player reviews and professional critics. I always like Steam reviews for games, because these are people which have actually put their money where their mouth is, bought the game and told people what they think, and they love it. Even a recently posted bad review of the game goes, yeah, it's poor performance and crashes, but otherwise it is a good game. Now compare that to the professional critics and it's a very different story. Not only did you have various different paragraphs going, oh, but first before we talk about the game, let's talk about real-world issues. There were some reviewers that just decided to disregard the game entirely and solely focus on that. Welcome to Wired. The game is mid at best, but its real-world harms are impossible to ignore. Don't you understand when it comes to a video game, this is serious business. People have died. We're not going to name them or point them out or be specific, because obviously we all know that's not happened. But we are going to kick up a fuss about it all the same. Giving it a 1 out of 10, it helped me say goodbye to the setting for good. So apparently, you're not that big a Harry Potter fan after all, are you? And obviously we've got deluded paragraphs here, but if you actually want to see how much of the review they talk about the game in, well, all of this doesn't talk about the game, nor does that, or there. None of that's about the game. This is the actual game review, and then all of this isn't anything to do with the game either. So at least they wrote 4 paragraphs about the game in their game review. I guess that's something. And they weren't the only ones kicking up a fuss about it. It did get particularly stupid when a developer that worked on Hogwarts Legacy came out and said, I'm not going to buy Hogwarts Legacy because the game doesn't deserve to prosper. This is a game you made, and you don't even think it's good enough to buy yourself? It is very difficult to take any moral grandstanding you do with a game seriously when you made the game. But no, I was a real-time technician on the floor, but I'm not purchasing it. It's the least I can do as an ally. Seriously, love, I think you've been spending too much time in the diplomacy section of Total War. Oh, and of course, all those streamer figures didn't come at nothing. There were people going from chat to chat thinking that they can spoil the story of Hogwarts, even though people have been spending 30 and 80 hours in the game. Yes, I'm sure 2 pieces of information about a mediocre story is definitely going to ruin the experience for people. Although there were other streamers that apparently got bullied by their own viewers. Twitch viewership's always been interesting in that the chat tends to reflect the streamer, and so this has got to at least be part of the audience that you've cultivated. Although on a game such as this, I'm sure a load of new people did come in all the same. And well, I think on the streamer's behalf, you should just engage in sort of moderation if there's something happening in chat you don't like. The more interesting take is that from the gamer themselves, who tried to claim that everybody is getting bullied from this game. Have you been bullied from Hogwarts Legacy? I actually can't understand how everyone's been bullied, but apparently that's where we're going with this one. Who say, are people insulting you for playing this game? Probably. Do you deserve it? Probably not. But that doesn't mean that you're right. I have to say, it's a very interesting take from a website called The Gamer that thinks that playing a game is wrong. Not the best way to preserve an audience, is it? You know, insulting them and calling them morally evil. But then again, when was the last time a gaming journalist had ever been in touch with gamers? Now, when it comes to news of games breaking records, you don't often think of those being a decade old, and yet that's exactly what we got with Counter-Strike Global Offensive getting its highest player count in 11 years, with 1.3 million concurrent users. Now, as seen in the Hogwarts section on both Steam and Twitch, CSGO is always massively up there in the charts anyway, but I never expected it to keep on breaking its records, and is likely tied to Steam's consistent growth over the last few years as well. People can say whatever they want about television and movies, but gaming has just consistently grown year after year, which may be one of the reasons why Valve's decided to pull their finger out and start updating their old games, with Team Fortress 2 receiving its first full-size update later this year. This is a game that launched all the way back in 2007, and I have repeatedly seen people just complain about bots and hackers and essentially claim the game is dead. And there's always been jokes about Team Fortress 2 being a glorified hack simulator, but I'm just glad that Valve is still continuing to update their stuff, and who knows, maybe one day we might get them to actually produce a game of their own again. Or maybe they'll just continue to take the piss out of us over Half-Life 3, who knows? In rather odd news, it seems like The Division 2 can't get a break, because they also tried to release an update, but then delayed the update, which broke the updater, and so now they can't update it to fix it. We delayed the season due to a localization issue, but in the process of creating an update that would resolve that issue, we encountered another error that brought down the entire build generation system. As such, we cannot update the game until this system has been rebuilt. To recap, to fix the error for a delayed update resulted in an error that broke the updater, which would be required to deliver the update. And if that's not clear as mud to you, then you're a better person than me. Nintendo now coming out with pricing, who have decided to say this, we're going to be charging $70 for Switch games on a case-by-case basis. Tears of Kingdom's $70 price won't come as standard. Now, I would have thought that the reason any business should say we're charging this price is because we can. At the end of the day, we're releasing a game, we know you want it, you'll pay $70 for it, so that's what we're going to charge. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't really expect much more explanation out of a company than that. They give you a price, you decide whether it's worth it or not. It's normally a simple decision. But Nintendo have been slightly more diplomatic about it, I think. As we know, some games on PlayStation have been $70, Xbox have announced $70 games themselves, so it's not exactly as if Nintendo is pushing the boat out here. Except when asked for the reasoning of the $70 price tag, they didn't just say, because we think we can get away with it. That we determine the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis. Is this trend going to go forwards? No. We determine the suggested retail price on a case-by-case basis. Just sounds like a marketing rep that doesn't have permission to actually say anything, doesn't it? Pray tell, is that case-by-case basis whether you think you can get away with it? Because that's what I assume it is. If you don't tell me the reasoning for your decision, I'm just going to assume for you, and I'm going to assume it's on the basis that you think you can make more money. It should be pretty obvious logic for a business. I don't know why we have to dance around their houses trying desperately not to answer the question. At the end of the day, people don't mind paying for things as long as they get value back. If you release good games, people will pay you for them. And if anything, I think a very recent example is that Hogwarts Legacy proved that to us. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know what you thought of any of the topics down below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.